tools. I'm particular about tools because these are things that we reinforce at this stage. You use red and green. Useful in the end where you teach the students to say, hey, let's have some interactivity, let's think, let's give you the autonomy. But you know, the thing is this, some of the statements that you and I know, between formal and informal, there are occasions where it's like bordering both. That's why your first one got us like, I see the teachers were all thinking deep as well. In fact, the teachers are thinking more than the students are thinking. Right? Maybe that if the sentences were shorter, and that's it. Is it wrong to say, I'm not an EL person, is it wrong to say some of them can be both formal and informal? Can we accept that? If you can, then if the students say, how do we use that? That's a great point. You know, how would you make it more formal? See, then I'm reinforcing the point earlier, that formality, certain words have certain impact. This is where earlier the activities, you know, as you're asking them, perhaps you want to circle this, you are building their vocabulary repertoire of words so that they know what are the words to use. Right? So that activity can have actually several uses. But that's it. I know it's also easy to use red and green, but you know, you're giving the secondary school teachers a hard time in future. Why? Text types, essay writing, composition. Which ones are the ones that students will normally write at Sec 1, Sec 2? What kind of essays do they write? Narrators, right? You want them to write formal writing? Right. Why? Primary school reinforced what? Red. I don't know whether when you all heard, you know, the red and green. Okay, I know it's nice, it's very fun. I see the students struggling, like, that's good. Right? In fact, you should affirm them and say, hey, good that you're thinking through. Why this, why that? Make a decision. Right? This is also where the think, pair, share can come in. You did this, why? Rather than, you know, putting there and say, why did you do that? Sometimes they will be frightened. Putting them in front of the whole class. Get them to talk between and then decide. At least the comfort level will be closer as well. So you're establishing certain social skills. But that's it. Red itself, I heard this from one of the kids near my area. I'm not sure if Rachel or Angelina. He said red. You know, they're saying, why green? Why red? So some of you said red for serious. But I heard one student said scary. Is she wrong? No. What does red traffic light tell us? Danger, right? My friends, secondary school EL teachers gonna suffer. Alright, so perhaps the change of color, because the connotation of red itself impacts something more as well. Stay away from formal essay writing, you know, something like that. So if you want to ask them to make a choice, you know, that's a great tool. And I see that you have up there saying, you know, raise your hand. You know, so you are establishing certain class norms. I'm running through this. Again, back to observing the students. So there are a lot more that we can learn from one another in terms of what do we record that's useful. Because especially if so many of us are focusing on individual students, this is where we really need to then collectively look. How does this student learn best? How does that student learn best? I was sharing it earlier. Some of you may have realized I ran from one side to another side because I'm very curious with two students, Ling Yan and Ling Fei. Particularly Ling Fei. If offhand I don't know the student well enough, I will be very quick to judge the student and say that student is disengaged, distracted. Because that girl, where she is seated, okay, especially in how she behaved, most of the time her eyes were fluttering. She wasn't even looking to the front. I was curious because the rest of the group also kind of ignored her. Right? Maybe because that is already a group norm. But if they are new to one another, then that's interesting because perhaps some of them should be kind of like, hey, what's the problem? You know? But that said, the fluttering of eyes, she has yawned several times. Okay? I noted this also. You were trying to help them by saying, point to where I want to talk about. She was looking at everybody else, then she anyhow point. In fact, her pointing was not exact. You know, but again, we never really captured that check-in. So useful to know students like that. You know, but I noticed one thing. Each time that she was kind of disengaged, before I actually start judging her, I ran over and pretended to look at the other group, but actually looking at her. She was erasing things. There were two things on her hand, pencil and an eraser. So she tried to write some things, then she erased it. So does that tell us a bit more, perhaps, about her preference of learning? Perhaps she needs to process by writing. Perhaps she needs to process by writing. Which means to say, if I were to build into the lesson earlier, and getting them to circle out, so what are some of the keywords, to make a decision for them, to start gathering the key learning. When she does that, that's good, because when she does that and she erases it, that's where you as a teacher can say, hey wait, don't erase, why don't you just cancel? So that to a child, if I'm just erasing my mistakes, I don't really learn, right? But because I'm using pencil and pen, and I cancel and write the correct answer, I am actually charting my own mistakes and say, hey, next time look back. You know, if I were to correct a child and say, why did you cancel here? Now do you know why this is the correct answer? You are actually helping them to have, in a way, a kind of formative assessment for themselves. So they also learn along the way. So if you were to have all these teachers, it's useful to provide a feedback in the colloquium and say, this is the characteristics of the students in this class. More of them learn this way, we notice this some of the problems. You know, then we can bring it to a new level. Yeah, the only big gap and challenge here is you're using questioning. That itself is a huge task, right? Because it depends on our skill, right? It depends on our readiness. And that's why I'm very happy to hear that you all co-designed this. Because how would you all relook at some of the questions thereafter? How would you all shape certain questions so that you give more autonomy to the child, they learn the facts as well, and at the same time they become more confident with interacting. I think this boils down to my last point, affordances of learning. I'll give you a very concrete example. In the group work, before the last activity, you had a big page where you ask them to tag, right? Okay, I'm going to be very naughty and say this. Some of them are very skillful blue taggers. Because their main job in the group is just prepare the blue tag. Okay, but really, and it's normal because if if this is what we regard as distribution of tasks. But let's say you want all of them to engage. You have A3 size, but the printer, and you see it depends on how students use. If I have 4 of us seated like this, if I put like that, the other 2 will be lost. If I put like this, I can't really see. I see, So there needs to be a lot more. So these are small little details. When you plan a task, how would you use them? Wouldn't it be easier if you want them to be, especially if they're new, think, pair, share, 2 of us work first. Then I compare, in the cell and 4, we compare our answer. Right? Then you can move to a bigger groups and compare the different speeds. I felt things like this would be important because as lesson study observers, this is where we see, hey, are they really learning? What are they struggling with? Then my interventions for the next lesson would be saying, perhaps instead of 1, let's have 2. Not really a big deal, but at least we learn it faster as well. Do we need so many of them? Maybe the passage could be shorter, because if I wanted them to learn the skill, then when they talk about it and they compare, they know the sequencing. Then I think the lesson itself, impact is there, because you want to scope that. I hope I'm not too critical. I'm just sharing from my perspective of how I see the students learn as well.